All right, welcome back. This time I decided to discuss the topic which has been discussed previously only slightly and in one angle only. Uh, I want to draw a picture of a developer. So this is the customer of developer experience, the primary customer, and understanding your customer is primary. It's the fundamental primary key of succeeding in the developer scene and making any products for the developers. So that's why you need to know them quite thoroughly. And this episode is supposed to help you in that. So before we go into the topic, reminder of the 100 Days DX, which is the biggest open resource on developer experience so far. It's not a book, it's a website. I wrote one post every day for about 3 months this year, and it's available at 100daysdx.com. If you want to read about the topic in a book, look for API Economy 101 from Amazon, for example, and you'll find it there. So keep this in mind. Okay, typically, this time I'm gonna talk about the developers from three aspects, and the typical first one is as consumers, and the second one's as a learners, how they learn and what kind of learners they are, and the third one is as a decision maker. And as I mentioned, this was one of we touched this topic earlier in earlier episode, but this time we'll recap and go it through again with more details. But first, as consumers, what are the developers as consumers? The first question in my mind was that how many software developers are there in the market? So what's the target of the business to developer marketing? And there's multiple sources and different estimates of the developer base on global level. And I found one collection of estimates from Global Developer Population Report 2019. It contains developer amounts from GitHub, Stack Overflow, NPM, US labor statistics, and EU labor statistics. So if you put that all together and then make a guesstimate of the population size of the developers, it's about 19.9 million active software developers at the moment, and it has been growing quite rapidly. There has been 21% growth during the 2018. So that's the basis for making an estimate that in 2030 there will be around 45 million developers globally. That's a huge amount of developers and huge amount of growth. So I'm really keen on seeing the next year's statistics. Is it gonna be as big growth, or is it gonna stabilize, or is it gonna expand even more? It's obviously it's growing. Software is eating the world and so on. So more and more developers are needed. Then the next thing quite often discussed is that what kind of developers they are, and one aspect is the where are they coming from and so on, and most of the developers are white or European descent, and less from the multiracial or even African, purely African or Middle Eastern. And the amount of South Asian developers has been growing, as well as the Hispanic amount of Hispanic developers, but still it's more or less a Western thing. And same for the gender. So it's really male driven segment. So the amount of females has been growing lately, not too much, 1% around in a year. And the amount of non-binary, genderqueer or gender non-conforming. It's been growing, but not as fast as the amount of females. But again, this is just some one or two viewpoints to the developer as a customer or consumer, and I was thinking that it probably is a different thing when we compare these statistics to the team level composition, because making a product it requires multiple disciplines, and the developers are not the only ones needed there. So it would be interesting to see what's the statistics for the team level compositions and so on, compare those to the developer segment directly. About the age, from the Stack Overflow survey results 2019 and 18, those were laid out a bit differently, but yes, it's like a early middle age dominance, possibly becoming a little younger. So the majority of the developers are becoming younger, so they are entering the markets earlier, not so late as previously. But again, yes, all right, around 20 to 25, 28, and a bit over 30. That seems to be the majority of the developers, so nothing out of the ordinary in my mind. But then how do you actually reach them, the developers, and how that compares to, let's say, to average Joe and Jane? So in a way, I'm comparing the business to developer and the business to consumer market, how to reach them online in social media specifically. And it seems that the developers are packed in a fewer channels. They use Reddit, YouTube, WhatsApp, Facebook, and then Twitter. But the B2C markets, they are heavily on Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. And for example, the Reddit is like they're in the quite at the bottom for the B2C. So it's different channels partially that work for the developers, but some of them overlap. For example, the YouTube seems to be something that both of these segments actually use. So reaching them out from the YouTube seems more plausible. And but anyway, the diversity in the B2C market is bigger than it seems to be in the developer segment. So keep that in mind when thinking about how to reach the developers. Then about as a learner, so in my understanding, the developers are curious, continuous online learners. And what it actually means and why did I come to the conclusion at this point is that 68, well, based on, again, Stack Overflow developer survey results, so only one source. Keep that in mind. It might be a little biased, and it's not the whole truth. It's one viewpoint to the subject. But anyway, according to that, 68% of the developers have a bachelor's or master's degree, and that's the active developer base. So if you just pick the professional developers, the percentage is like 75%, even higher. So they get education, basic education quite often, but 86% of those even say that they have taught themselves a new language, framework, or tool outside their formal education. So basically they are learning all the time new stuff as they come along, because there's the tools and the frameworks and everything change all the time, so they need to keep up to date. And it seems that the online courses and MOOCs are the thing even for the developers. So 60% has participated in an online course during the past year. So provide the developers means to self-educate them as they want it, when they want it, and do it online. It seems to be the way to go. Then as decision makers behind the scenes, I added the part behind the scenes compared to the previous discussions. 38% of the developers are in position to make purchases, and this is based on Global Developer Population Report 2019 by Slashdata. So again, only one source. I didn't have time to make any kind of hybrids from multiple sources yet, but anyway, it seems quite interesting. And 45% are in position to make recommendations. So if they don't make the purchases and decisions directly, then they actually make recommendations for the management above them. So in a way, it seems that the decisions are made or at least limited even before the final decision goes to the person who actually has the hands on the credit card and make the final adding the numbers to the ordering form. So decisions probably are done more and more by the developers themselves, and this is in line also with my experiences while developing the platform of trust and discussing with the clients and prospect customers. Often the CTO is asked for an opinion of the platform, and if they don't agree with the business decision makers, then they will not do the deal with us either. So technical people are heavily influencing the decision making now. And 25% of the developers can spend $10,000 or even more without any kind of authorizations, any kind of questions from anyone, just to make the deal. So if that is put in the numbers as market sizes, with the current size of the developer market and the amount of developers in the global level, it means that we have around $47.5 billion market. And if the estimates of the growth is accurate, it's gonna be like $112.5 billion in 2030. That's about it. So developers as consumers, and developers as learners, and as decision makers. Hopefully you learned a lot, and we'll come back next time again.